All right, this is the Nordic Mythology Podcast. I'm Daniel Farrand, co-owner of the company Hans Woden, and I'm joined, as always, by Dr. Matthias Nordvig.
Hello, everybody. Today we are joined by Jeremy and Alex, who are the organizers of the really awesome heavy metal festival, Fire in the Mountains, that takes place in Wyoming, in near the Tetons, with a nice, beautiful view to the Tetons, not far from Jackson Hole. So welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Skull, I brought my Glogg.
What have you got?
He's got Glogg.
Glogg, yeah, it's my grandfather's Norwegian recipe that we make around the holiday time. So it's
Grandpa Ralph.
Grandpa Ralph, fucking right.
Shout out Grandpa Ralph.
Yeah, we Jeremy and I used to work together at a restaurant, and one Christmas we pretty much got every patron ship-based who drank Glogg, because it was, it's supposed to be my grandfather's recipe uses Everclear, so it yields a gallon, and half of it is port wine, 1/4 of it is water, and 1/4 of it is Everclear. But that's it's extreme. So
that is hardcore.
You don't need much, but I've watered it down, so I use mostly aquavit. I used Linny this time around.
Nice.
Brenneman still makes the best, in my opinion. And then I throw a portion of that Everclear just to keep it clean, just to keep it,
I still have no idea.
I even put on the menu, because I was the bar manager at the time of that place, and I even put on the menu Grandpa Ralph's Glogg. People had heard of mule wine or whatever, but they didn't realize what Glühwein, but they're like, what the hell is Glogg?
Exactly.
And who the hell is Grandpa Ralph?
Yeah, it's awesome. We actually had a family come in from Norway who we're still in touch with. They're great. They Glogg recipe, so I gave them my grandfather's recipe, and they long story short, but it's a really good one. Asbjorn, the husband, worked for the United States at the time as a consultant for special forces, he's like a big deal in the Norwegian military, and was employed by America to come over and help train American military and who knows what, it's classified. So he was intelligence. That following Christmas, so a year later, they had made a bunch of Glogg, Grandpa Ralph's Glogg, for a holiday party they had. They didn't tell me who, but one high-ranking military official, American official, face plant. Apparently he's a politician. They wouldn't tell me who. Face planted because he was so shit-faced from the Glogg in the snow, and they had snow in Virginia at the time. So we're changing lives way to Virginia.
I mean,
Glogg.
There's just the meme of Scrooge McDuck diving into the money coins going through my head right now, of how you should market Grandpa Ralph's Glogg and sell it on the get it out there. I mean,
I feel like I should go heat up some Glogg, because I got Grandpa Ralph's Glogg that Alex gave me for on the solstice.
That's right.
So even though I'm under the weather, I'm gonna just go heat some up real quick.
Probably should. The fumes
back.
will clear you up, man.
Totally,
yes.
totally,
yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like this episode has started out with an advert for Grandpa Ralph's Glogg.
I think it has.
Yeah, it's too bad we didn't have it trademarked and ready to roll out.
We should have. I mean,
there's Matthias and I were just talking about this. There's a business opportunity, man.
Boom. Yeah, absolutely. There's a business opportunity, of course, unless we get canceled, because now Jeremy is saying that Glogg is his remedy for COVID. So you never know what's gonna happen.
Well, hell, maybe it works, and then
I hope it does
too.
Then we will be rich.
Yeah.
That's where the money is. I still don't know what Glogg is. You said all these things, and I got excited. I didn't know any of what you said in England.
Well, so here we go. So it's a traditional Scandinavian mulled wine, essentially. Mm-hmm. In this case, it's my grandfather's Norwegian recipe. You don't serve much You know, you only do a few ounces,
Mhm.
but it is basically a mulled port wine recipe. So yeah, for anyone that would like to make their own, it yields a
Oh,
gallon.
you're not a
I
good
don't,
businessman, are you?
that's
Don't give
okay.
the
Yeah, yeah,
recipe
yeah.
away
Yeah,
to
don't give.
everyone.
Well, all right.
No,
Well,
you can
you
give
know,
it
this is
away.
for the Patreon customers. You know, they're paying, so it's fine.
Yeah.
It yields a gallon. I don't know what that is in international units. Sorry, you know, liters,
It's
whatever.
about 4 liters.
Yeah, I think
Okay,
so.
yeah, Matthias can do the translation.
Yeah.
And then so you do 1/4 of that. So 1 quart water, 1 quart supposed to be grain alcohol. I use mostly aquavit in this case.
What's aquavit? That's what got me before.
That's
What's aquavit? Aren't you supposed to be a Viking?
Actually, I actually have my Brandon Aquavit shirt on right now.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
you're
you do.
repping it.
Yeah.
What am I?
So
What am I missing here?
aquavit's it's a Scandinavian spirit. It's like vodka to Scandinavians, but it's made with rye, so
Oh, okay.
caraway. So it has like
Okay.
a licorice flavor,
Oh,
but it's
nice.
strong. I mean, it's
I
like
almost
a
consider
vodka.
it more of a. I almost consider it more of a gin because
Right.
gin is kind of more juniper based, where vodka is just a neutral grain spirit.
Mhm.
This is aquavit is more of a gin, but you take out the juniper kind of rather than distilling it with juniper. It's still a grain based spirit that has juniper in it as a kind of a flavoring compound. This aquavit uses rye or caraway
Mhm.
usually.
Yeah.
Instead of juniper, right?
And
so
it is
I like
actually,
to compare it as a gin more than a vodka because it really isn't a neutral grain spirit.
yeah, I
Okay.
think you're right about that. And honestly, it is also the reason that I hate caraway, because I because this liquor was the first thing I got drunk off when I was
Yeah.
what, 13 or 12 or
Same.
something
Right.
like that.
Same. Yeah.
Like, you know,
So
it's
is it its
Scandinavian.
own spirit?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And you drink it at all kind of festivities in Scandinavia. So usually you drink it when you have the fish dishes before you have the main course, right?
Mhm.
So
Interesting.
Okay.
at like a Christmas, we have these Christmas lunches that we do, you know. So Scandinavians will start partying Christmas style in the late November and then all the way through, because there are these Christmas lunches like with work or with friends or in some other capacity. And then you always start out with like pickled herring. And see, you didn't believe me when I was telling you about the pickled herring shots, but they do
Yeah,
exist.
I remember. I listened to that last week. It was great.
Pickled herring, and then your schnapps or akavit, and you eat a herring, and then you chug that, and you know, keep going like that for hours.
It's just a Scandinavian tequila slammer.
No
Pretty
kidding.
much, yes.
It's fucking.
Oh,
It's weird.
God,
It's weird. So is aquavit is it a spirit in strength, or is it more like a
It's
like a liqueur? So
45%.
Oh, okay, so it's like a
yeah.
gin
No.
spirit.
It's like it's like a
Oh,
vodka,
cool.
gin, whiskey. Yeah, it's the same. That's
I'm
what
gonna
makes
have
it
to
so
find
great.
some.
Yeah, you mix it in with makes the best Bloody Mary you've ever had.
Absolutely.
It's awesome. And each country has their own recipe. So like Norway's is different than Sweden's, and that's different from Denmark's, and that's different from Iceland. But yeah, Matthias, what's the deal? Because Norway's is golden color, Iceland and Swedish are clear, right? And then is Denmark's gold too, or is Norway the only gold?
So the gold, you can get one, I think, in Denmark that also has the golden color. And I don't know exactly why or how or what it is that makes that.
A lot of the golden color, just to let me interject, because Brennivin in Iceland, they have golden colored ones, and that just means that they actually age it in barrel. And it creates that. So they have like their baseline one is the clear one. And that's, hasn't been aged. And then they, I have no idea if this is traditional to Iceland or not for them to age it in barrel. It very well could not be traditional. But they want to make higher tiers of their aquavit by, this better, more expensive one that's been
stinks of a marketing ploy,
aged in
doesn't it?
barrel.
Mhm.
They also have one where they actually take rye bread and bake it in the earth, because the Iceland has all the geothermal, and then they bake it in the earth and then literally create aquavit out of that, and that one's really high end,
Whoa.
kind of
I haven't
ridiculously
had that
good.
one yet.
It's crazy.
You've had it?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's a Brennivin one?
Oh yeah.
Can we get
It's
that
really
for
good.
our festival?
Maybe
They're a sponsor. Brendavin's
they are
a sponsor,
Oh
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. Hey, but real quick, let me just finish Grandpa Ralph's recipe before we forget.
Oh
here.
yeah.
Start where
get
we
on.
finish, right? So
Yeah.
it's super simple. So you got a gallon, right? 2 quarts port wine. Use these 1 quart water, 1 quart grain alcohol, aquavit combo mix. And then he calls for 2 cups of sugar. I'm from New England, so I just put maple syrup in it to eyeball. It's a much better flavor. Sugar, 2 cups of sugar with port wine is so sweet. It's like, it's too much. And then mulling spices. So 2 cinnamon sticks, 9 cloves, 9 cardamom pods, and then a box of raisins and 4 ounces of skinned almonds. So just skinless almonds. And you bring that all just to a boil. You don't want to boil it because you don't want to waste any alcohol at all. So you bring it just to, as if there's not enough. You bring it just to a boil, and then you let it sit overnight. You strain it, and then you serve. You heat it up, per serving the next day, and 3 to 6 raisins and 1 almond per cup, which mine is gone, of course. So might have to take a break too. That's it, and it's like delicious. Jeremy's a sommelier, and somehow like he gets blown away every year. He's like, man, it just keeps getting better. Hopefully this year is the same. But I don't know. What do you think, Jeremy? You're drinking it now, right?
It's delicious. Yeah, it's great. I love it.
Great. Oh wow, you went big.
I think
You're
for
a maniac.
future, I think after this episode,
Dude, that's
for
way
future
too much. Glogg.
episodes,
You're gonna be
you guys
hammered.
it'll be great. It'll make the interview a little more interesting.
Yeah, that's it.
I come with like just a few ounces, and he's got a fucking.
I'm a professional. I'm a professional,
He's
Alex.
got
I
a
can
bucket
handle it.
over there.
You are. You're a professional. You're a sommelier. It's what you get paid to do, even when you're sick with COVID. Awesome. Or cured with COVID, right? We gotta.
Cured. Yeah, this is curing me.
That's curing you from COVID.
Shan's gonna hate if I don't put a disclaimer in and say that Uncle Ralph's
Grandpa.
Grandpa Ralph's does not cure COVID. Please do not try that, and then
I mean, at this point, we might as well fucking try everything, right? Nothing's gonna work. So Jeremy's gonna wake up right as rain tomorrow.
Hopefully.
He's gonna be shedding powder.
Hopefully. No, I mean, this episode now has to be called Grandpa Ralph's Glogg. There's no other name for it, I don't think.
Oh man, people would be like, huh? What are they talking about? Is this supposed to be about a festival? No, don't worry about it. We'll get there.
Eventually we'll get there, yeah.
I think from now on, though, we just set a precedent for all your episodes. You two are going to have to drink Glogg for all the episodes, and you'll see there'll be like a pre-Glogg kind of how your episodes are, and then like a post, the post Fire in the Mountains interview with the, you guys just drunk on Glogg the whole time.
Yeah, I do have some for you, Matthias. Daniel, if I can get that out to you, brother, I'll send it to you. But...
Oh, please do. I will make sure it gets here personally. I'll figure it out somehow.
Awesome.
I mean, Glogg is, Matthias, you're gonna have some sort of story on where that comes from, surely, because that's such a numb, aggressive sounding kind of name for something you're gonna drink. It's not very. It's like grog. It's very feels very piratey and aggressive almost.
Well,
everybody says that.
I guess you're right. It does sound very piratey. So I mean, in Northern Europe, there are plenty of these. What do you call them? These types of drinks, right? That's ultimately have their origin in Germany. Like it's just a tradition of making warm wine and spiced wine in the wintertime. I mean, if you go back to the medieval period, we know that people mix spices in wine a lot. It was like a common thing, really. It was how you also demonstrated to the rest of the world that you were totally fancy, because you could get that cinnamon stick that would come all the way from India. So that's how it's sort of like become a, you know, the funny thing is that the most Northern European Christmas traditions, right? They have all like evolved from, you know, what rich people used to do in all the year round, pretty much, if they could afford it, right? Like the rice pudding that we like to eat, for instance, is a great example of that too. You know, back in the day, rice was you know, fancy, expensive, imported grain of some kind. So that's the same with the glögg. Now, where the word itself comes from is actually quite interesting. And it looks like it comes from Swedish glögga. Glögga. I don't know how they would pronounce that. We might need help from Frederick, which means to burn or to mull. So it might be a dialect word. I'm not entirely sure. So yeah, that's where we get the word from.
Oh, well, there we go.
Yeah, glögga. So Frederick is saying glöd is ember. That's the same in Danish. So I guess when you add the GA to it, then you're actively embering something. I don't know how.
So it is meant to be served warm, obviously. Jeremy, you went and warmed up. So I guess it just seems to be a more extreme version of a mulled wine.
Yes.
So
that's exactly right, because it has a pretty high liquor content in it as well. So yeah.
Did I not make that clear already?
You did.
I think you did.
You did.
I'm fucking hammered off this.
The little bit. No, perfect. Should we jump into the festival?
Sure.
The reason you're here, not the. I mean, the glögg is fascinating, to be honest, and I'm gonna have to go and track some down as well.
Yeah,
I think it's pretty easy for you to get over there.
Anyone that sells it, you know, in mass, like Blue Vine, right?
I mean,
I feel like it's worth. I'm sorry, I cut out for a minute.
No, I was just saying that I'm sure that in Northern England you should be able to get it. You know, right, Dan?
No. I'm gonna find it and then try and find some to sell on my website.
Yeah,
of course I am. Of course I am.
Unless of course Brexit has, like, you know, cut the tabs on glögg.
The glögg supplies have gone.
The Swedes and the Germans are like, you can't have our funny wine anymore.
I'll make my own and call it Grandpa. I can't copy Ralph, so it's just gonna have to be like something simple. Grandpa Robert, that's pretty British. Grandpa Robert's glögg. All right, so the fire in the mountains, where did it start? Do you want to tell us maybe a little bit about that? I think that's a good place as anywhere to begin.
Yeah, Jeremy.
I mean, sorry to interrupt, but let's start with what the festival is, maybe, and then we can go back to how it began.
Yeah, well, I mean, currently what the festival is, you know, well, I mean, it's every year it kind of morphs into something a little, I wouldn't say different, but I guess more encompassing, because, you know, from the beginnings, we had kind of a large scale vision of it. And we're just at this point really trying to get to, you know, achieve that vision. And so that's why I say each year it becomes a bit more encompassing, you know, as far as encompassing what our overall vision is. And so currently, you know, for 2022, we're getting there slowly to encompass that vision, but it's you know, we got 24 bands or so over the course of 3 days. The first day is more of an acoustic show, a bit of a smaller package, music from 6 to 10 is kind of more of an introductory, just kind of welcome to the ranch. The festival itself takes place at Heart Six Ranch, which is a dude ranch, the oldest dude ranch in Teton County, Wyoming. So it's just kind of like a welcome here type of event. And then the following 2 days are the plugged in kind of full on version of longer days of music, with a good, we try and curate a kind of more of an eclectic mix of metal and heavy music. So there are some folk acts and some, we want to include more of that kind of Viking folk genre as well.
But it's half and half at this point. It's half metal, half
really is.
not metal music, and it's an open air festival is what it is. And it's not just music. We have art exhibits. We have over a dozen speakers doing workshops from how to make a flint steel fire in the backcountry to Incan shamanism and everything in between. It's pretty immersive experience with workshops. So from 9 to 3 every day, basically until the music starts, we have workshops, as well as organized or semi-organized adventures. Get in the mountains, go play, go do the stuff we love doing, living there, go whitewater rafting, go rock climbing, go horseback riding, go fishing, whatever.
Wrestle a grizzly bear.
Wrestle a fucking grizzly. Yeah.
Bear.
You're in the most densely
Hopefully
populated.
Not, but...
Yeah, hopefully not. Because it is.
Oh, that's why you also teach people how to handle if they were to run into a grizzly bear, right?
The whole festival takes place on the Dude Ranch, but you're surrounded by Grand Teton National Park and the Bridger Teton Wilderness. Like, you are in the most densely populated habitat, grizzly bear habitat in the lower 48. Like, that is fact. So like, city slickers.
We don't want that to dissuade people from coming, though, because we're very safe with it.
No one's gotten eaten yet.
No,
I mean, we have a lot of people and a lot of scents, and grizzly bears are really attracted to. They have an amazing sense of smell, and they're really attracted to scents that come out. But the other thing is they ultimately also don't really want to be around a few thousand people either.
No.
So
I do imagine there are some scents coming off of that festival as well. By day 3, I imagine there's some.
And it's known fact, grizzly bears. Yellowstone grizzly bears love heavy metal, so
true.
A good and a bad thing.
I mean, I imagine all grizzly bears do.
They probably do, don't they?
Yeah,
if they've got music of choice.
We can only speak about the Yellowstone ones, though.
I think we're gonna have to rewind for a second, because I think we're gonna have to explain to Dan what a dude ranch is. When he said it twice, Mateus must have seen me wanting to dying to ask. You know me now. We've been doing this long enough.
A dude ranch is essentially a ranch that has historically
like an old school resort,
and currently have guests on their property. So they're an operating ranch where they they could either have cattle on it for meat purposes, or they also do kind of out backcountry trips for guests for entertainment with their horses. And
they would
a lot of times
horses
and they
cattle.
raise horses.
Yeah.
And a lot of times dude ranches historically actually had a lot of entertainment for guests staying there, including music. And so that's
in a way
it is appropriate for us to be, having this event on a dude ranch, because, we are entertaining the guests. On this weekend, we have, a few thousand Fire in the Mountains guests, right? As part of, they're also the guests of Heart Six Ranch. And so we're providing music for everyone in entertainment. And so it does fit in line kind of with what, a dude ranch historically has done.
Right. We're just kind of evolving the concept a little bit, because the whole idea was to get people into nature, right? Much the same basis as our festival. We're trying to get people out of the city back into nature, in the setting that so many of the bands we're bringing to Fire in the Mountains are singing about. This epic landscape, the mountains, these adventures, pushing yourself, esoteric mysteries of, the cosmic influences in the world and such. And so do that on a dude ranch just makes sense because it's, so Wyoming. It's like, it's Wyoming as fuck. It's about as Wyoming as you can get, on a dude ranch. It's like,
yeah, I mean, dude
similar.
ranches are definitely a an American West thing specifically.
Yeah.
A dude ranch to me, just the name dude ranch just sounds so unapologetically American.
No shit.
I just imagine like a bunch of frat bros. That's when you first said, I was like, is it like is he just being taken over by a bunch of bros who just hang out on a ranch? But apparently not. I mean, that's not what it is.
No,
that's super interesting. That's super interesting that's what it sounds like to your ears, where like to our ears who, live out here and from this area, we don't really like dude ranch. Just sounds like a dude ranch. It doesn't sound like anything frat boy, right? Because that context, the context, we just have different context with that word, with the kind of word symbolism in a way. So
that's where dude came from.
Mm-hmm.
Was that context?
I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to look at that word again the same way again. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. No, I mean, I imagine that any heavy metal festival on the planet has a very high percentage of people interested in Vikings, the Viking Age, Nordic mythology. It seems something that goes hand in hand together. And I imagine you found that with your clientele.
Yeah. I think we
for
did.
sure.
And especially this year, because our headliner is a band named Enslaved from Norway.
Mm-hmm.
And they are very much entrenched in the Viking Nordic past, the Norse, mythologies, etc. So they've actually, Ivar from Enslaved has offered to partially curate our festival. So he's directly a part of this year's iteration of Fire in the Mountains and has created a theme called Wings over Utgard. And that theme permeates the rest of the festival and what else is happening. So it's naturally going to attract quite a few folks in that specific scene.
I also think like from a bigger sense, like you were asking, one of the initial questions is like, what is Fire in the Mountains? And one of our visions with Fire in the Mountains is really to garner a sense of in a way of this kind of getting back to our roots and our tribalism, and we all come from different we all come from a different region, a different culture, a different area of the world historically and currently, and really when it comes down to it, we're all just human beings living in the same planet, and a lot of different ancient old cultures, indigenous cultures really have a lot of the same aspects with them, whether or not it's more of a Viking heritage versus a Native American heritage versus an Incan heritage versus somewhere else as well. Like then when we Alex touched on the fact that we're bringing in Slave, we like to have a lot of these, we want to continue facilitating bringing a bunch of Viking folk music, because Alex and I are both obsessed with that music. We love the sound of it, but like we also have Incan shamans coming and Native Americans to do all these workshops, and then really getting these people all had very came from totally different areas of the planet historically and currently, but we all kind of really come from the same basis of teachings from them and what we learn and what we can take from them. And so really, the goal is someone can come to the festival on day one on Friday, July 22nd, leave on Monday, July 25th, and have a completely different perspective on the world, which from not only a natural sense, which we want to be, an environmental organization, environmental education organization, but also we want people to realize that their base roots of who they are as humanity, we all share the same thing, right? And that's really important, especially I think in today's completely divided world. like, it's so valuable.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm.
So that has always been one of our big concepts with Fire in the Mountains, and we're really trying to each year drive that home a little bit more. So
yeah, no, that's I think it's a beautiful message, because as you say, especially in today's climate, because it feels at the minute, the more everybody pushes for kind of inclusivity, the more people seem to becoming more and more divided as well. I mean, I'm only 32, but in my short 32 years, I've never known, or everything just feel divided all over. Whether it was Brexit, it's like, from a British standpoint, it was like it was Brexit before that divided everybody, and then from that it's rolled into COVID, and it's just this whole split. And if you dare to say that you question the vaccine, then you're automatically a tinfoil anti-vaxxer. But if you get the vaccine, then you're automatically a government sheep. And it's like
it's almost as if there's a bunch of douchebags out there constantly putting out these messages so that people will, jump on them, right?
Yeah, it's just these two sides. And then I fully think that social media has a lot to answer for in the way that they show people their information. So it's nice to see that trying to bring people back together, and actually, because meeting people face to face is when you realize that the reality is we're all the same. Yes. We all walk the same earth. But when you talking on social media and you're kind of arguing over Facebook, you don't get that sense of humanity. Whereas face to face, you would never say the things to people. And also just hanging out with people from different cultures, you quickly realize that they're no different to you. But when you're kind of segregated in these little groups, it's easy to go, well, they do this and it just looks funny, or it sounds different, and it's just weird to what I do. But when you actually ingratiate into it and do it, you realize that it's all pretty much the same shit. We're all just trying to survive and hustle and have a good time, I guess.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the idea of indigenous wisdom. That's like, it's such a universal term, when indigenous wisdom in modern contexts is more like animism, right? This idea that they all have very similar, all of our ancient ancestral past traditions had different but very similar understandings of the world, very similar. Like in the grand scheme, like the overall view, the 30,000 square foot view was the same. You break it down, it had to do with your surroundings, your immediate surroundings, which kind of influenced how that 30,000 square foot view became something ground level and totally unique to where they were living and their sense of place. So with Fire in the Mountains, indigenous wisdom is at the heart of it all. Like, we are there to pay homage to our ancestors of place and lineage. It's something I pray to every morning. Like, I never met the Micmac, Native Americans. I've never been a part of them directly, but I pray to them every morning because they are part of the land that I grew up on, and among many others. And I do that just to say thank you, just on a very basic level. So in many ways, like, Fire in the Mountains is our attempt to do that on some level and bring people together collectively to shift consciousness just enough to be a little more respectful, a little more in touch with the natural and ancestral cultural world around us.
I think that's an important word, just respect, because I feel like that's what so many people are missing. It's that they just lack the respect for people to have different opinions or have different religions. Especially, I see it all the time, particularly in this kind of community, just people bashing Christianity. It's very popular to hate by Christianity. I mean, Christianity have done a lot of fucked up stuff, but it's not the people who today believe in Christianity. They didn't do it. They just believe in what they believe in, and you just have to have respect for that's what they choose to believe, or they have been brought up to believe. And it's just respecting each other, which just seems to have disappeared. It's all become kind of shouting at each other and arguing and telling each other that you're wrong all the time.
I think so much of that, and we can go down this rabbit hole, so we got to be careful, but like so much of that I think just has to do with the overall disconnect that people are facing, especially in America, right? Like, what's our culture? Like, we don't really have one, so people gravitate to things like, you know, Nordic mythology and Vikings because it's super trendy right now and more easily obtainable because of TV shows and music, especially, and podcasts. And so, it's this notion that like people are
Such a
kind of
charm,
lost and
right?
they're searching.
You can come back.
Yeah. But people are seeking for that connection, and it's a really beautiful thing, because I think when I see all that disconnect in the world right now, especially right now, it has so much to do with people just being lost and not knowing where they can turn for accurate information or connection with a safe connection, whether it's ethereal or with a brother or a sister, or a family member, like people just want that, man. They want to feel safe, and they want to feel heard, and they want to feel honored in some way. And I see like all of this in the world today as like not cry for help, but like, wow, we don't know where to go. Like, what do we do? Like, it's gonna blame you, instead of like looking in the mirror and like just centering yourself and like connecting, touching the earth, putting your hands in the earth.
I say again, it's almost as if there's like a conglomerate of douchebags out there who are intentionally mismessaging, right? and I mean,
you get your tinfoil hat on.
No, I mean, this is, look, I have like this tendency to read multiple news outlets, right? So I go on CNN, I go on MSNBC, I go on Fox News, and it's really, really interesting to see the differences in messaging there. It's also really interesting to see how each network is caught up on their own thing, right? And of course, I also watch foreign news of various kinds, Scandinavian news, German, some BBC and so on, right? So you get a very interesting, very broad perspective from that kind of stuff, and it's fascinating to see how there's an editorial line that has been chosen in each of these news outlets. And this editorial line then governs what they focus on. And that is part of confusing the public, right? Because the public then receives their messages and assumes that this is the most important thing that they need to care about, right? But it might not actually be all the time, right? If you're somebody who lives in, I don't know, rural Wisconsin, maybe it's not the most important thing for you to care about how many murders there were in Atlanta. Maybe it's not the most important thing for you to care about the rise of COVID in New York or something like that. Maybe there are more important things for you right there, and it's the same thing for somebody in the UK. Maybe maybe what's happening in the US is not that interesting for somebody in the UK.
That doesn't sell, though. That's the problem.
No, it doesn't sell. That's the thing. It doesn't sell. Paranoia and panic sells, and that's what they all know. Fear. And that's the main editorial line. And then they found different things to panic about. If you go to MSNBC, they're panicking about the American right wing and the insurrection and that kind of stuff. If you go to Fox News, they're panicking about left wing people and crime, right? And
it's all just smoke and mirrors to keep people perpetually confused and disconnected from themselves and from others. Because if you have a unified force, well, fuck, that's how you change the world, the course of the world. When we all realize we have the power, but instead we're bickering amongst each other and so disconnected from ourselves. We don't have that collective power, and that's what they want, because that's the only way they can stay in power. They, as in the corporate elites and the powers that be.
And that's part of it as well, is that it becomes so divided that even people on the same side then become so extreme that they begin fighting amongst themselves and have infighting. I mean, the perfect example is in the Nordic animism group. I was watching an argument between well, I don't know if it was an argument, it was like a discussion between Runa and somebody else. And it went on for like 3 or 4 days. I think Runa was only in for maybe a day, but the guy and another couple of people were talking for it. It was a good few days. I saw another message pop up today, so it was kind of like over the whole festive period that they were going back and forwards, and it's like you're all on the same fucking side. You're all in this group. You all agree on probably 99% of things, but you're fighting over something that's insignificant compared to everything else that you believe in. Your time should be, especially over the festive period, spend your time with your family rather than sat bickering over something that's just not that important. And you are all on this, like you say, on the same team, and stuff like that.
This is why I am not on Facebook anymore. Getting caught in that bullshit. Holy shit, no.
No.
Yeah.
But that's
you've been there.
You need to people need to just put their phones down and kind of go outside and see the real world.
Spend time with the family, man. Like
that's it. But Alex, I just want to pull back on something you said a couple of minutes ago about kind of, especially in the USA, people having that past and that kind of culture, I guess, for a better word, and history, and it's kind of got me thinking for a minute about how obviously the USA's history as a country is very short, and then there is such a big part of that I guess that is filled with the whole slavery type era, which you can't kind of attach yourself to that nowadays in any way. So it's no surprise that so many people look back further than that, and then obviously it goes to the looking towards the European side of things. So I guess I just found that interesting. There is no real good history. Well, obviously there's good history to the USA, but there is such a dark side to it that's there.
Yeah, it's funny because I had this conversation with our mutual friend Jonas like a year ago. And as you know, that man can spew some intellectual wisdom, and he kind of gave me a nice little metaphorical verbal bitch slap of sorts, reminding me like, hey man, like don't put your country, because I'm often real critical about our country for so many obvious reasons. It pisses me off. And he was like, dude, look, like you have a really wonderful history. Yeah, it's short, but like think about what you guys have been through. Think about what you've done. Like don't shit on that. Things are a mess right now, but like that's also part of your experiment as a country. Like so you may not have a cultural identity that is identifiably solely American outside of what, like hot dogs and like baseball games or something. I don't even know what it would be right now. You do have a rich history, so you should honor that, and it reminded me that like, yeah, it was founded on a bunch of serious, like rugged individualism, like growing up in New England, Jeremy, all about the Green Mountain Boys. And those were, like basically the Minutemen, the militia in Vermont, who came and kind of saved the day during the Revolution, the American Revolution. And like, that's an identity you want to get behind. They even have like Green Mountain Boys flags and like patches and stuff in Vermont because they love that history about their state, and they very much uphold it still to this day with their political views and like, kind of, passion for it all. And like, that's really beautiful. But when you can't go very far past, like when I say culture, I'm thinking like Grandpa Ralph's Glugg, like people don't necessarily have that connection to their past heritage and culture to have Christmas Eves with their Norwegian side of the family or whoever,
I want to throw something in here, because I would say that, most people in this country, apart from those who have, deliberately had their past taken away from them by others, such as, a lot of African Americans who were brought over here by white people as slaves, right? But the white population has always had the potential of retaining culture, right? They have always had that potential. They just didn't necessarily honor it, right? They were more interested in hot dogs and baseball games, and that's how they forgot about it, right?
Money's got to be one of them.
Money,
well,
absolutely.
Dude.
And so there is that aspect to it, right? And so that means that, you know, a couple of generations later, all of a sudden people are like, well, what the fuck? I'm culturally empty because everything that could have been culture for me has been supplanted by capitalism.
Yeah.
Right. Buying and selling shit, and that's it. Right.
Yeah.
And that does suck. It is a very boring life to live, you know, and that's why people are then, you know, looking back in different ways. But I also want to point something out here, and that is the US isn't that young. You know, it's there's like this myth about this country being young, but there are plenty of European countries that are younger. And there are plenty of European countries that, you know, in different ways have been reconfigured, and in that sense could also be said to be younger. Like, you know, my country. Go back think about it. Go back 200 years, right? Denmark and Norway were the same country, right? They're not anymore, right? So
but you're talking like
those are just borders, though, not necessarily people.
Absolutely not, my friends.
Okay.
With changes of borders, right? With changes of borders come also changes of mentality.
Fair enough.
Right. And changes in direction. Like, are we looking to Oslo, or are we looking to Copenhagen? Are we looking to Stockholm, or are we looking to you know, Helsinki, and so on and so on. And you can go anywhere in Europe and you can see, oh, like, you know, fucking Germany was created in the 1870s, right?
Yeah,
like,
I think the difference is that it's an influx of new people into North America. So that's kind of what makes it, I guess, new in some ways. But obviously there was when we say it's a new country, we're only talking about white people in the USA. Like, there was people there before. It's got a history pre that, but obviously as a country, it is fairly new. I understand what you're saying, Matthias, about kind of like the European countries being made, but there was still kind of the root of people there, and it's just kind of the name of the area that's changed, whereas the USA seems to be a wholly new
right.
built thing.
When Denmark was Denmark part of Norway initially? Is that
vice versa?
Kind of
depending on which
Norway
time period,
was
we
part
can
of
call
Denmark,
it a twin kingdom. We can call it a twin kingdom. We can also call it a you know, oppressive king in Copenhagen who is being a dick to the Norwegians. Like, there's a lot of versions of it.
So were those borders drawn at the time because actually the people were very different from each other, or were the borders drawn and then the people became different from each other, or a combination?
Oh, that is a very complicated and
very
explosive question. I mean, so the reason that Denmark and Norway stopped being in a kingdom with one another is that the Swedes took Norway. So the Norwegians originally didn't really have any choices in what they could and could not be, right? That was decided from the outside, either by the king in Denmark or the king in Sweden. But that's, you know, that's also a rabbit hole. What I want to point out, though, is that the US, in terms of a country, in terms of a polity of some kind, has actually had a coherent existence for longer than a lot of European countries. And the idea that, oh, Europe it's where it came from or something like that, yeah, sure, maybe in the beginning for these white Americans, but there's so much more to it, right? And as long, this is my message for the Americans, as long as the Americans are sitting and like hankering towards this region in the East, right, they're not going to figure out what the fuck they are, and they're not going to figure out how to get past all of their past, right? People need to start thinking ahead instead of thinking backwards, right? And this is where there is some awesome opportunity here for, you know, creating new modern cultures based off of older stuff. Absolutely, right? But in a sense that is not, for instance, exclusive to just European. because there's a lot more than European here, right? And, and that's really important to keep in mind. That's some of the stuff that you guys are doing by synthesizing and bringing in, traditions from a lot of different peoples and learning from a lot of different peoples.
Well, one of the other things we're trying to do is we've touched on, Alex is like, well, we, in America, we kind of lack, this culture or whatever that other people have more of. And then you started talking about, our capitalist culture of hot dogs and baseball games or something. But what existed before that? It was basically cowboys and Indians, Native Americans and the white people that were settling the West. And, so with Fire in the Mountains, we're trying to have this, this deep experience for people where it garners a sense of place, right? So we're having this festival on a dude ranch. That is, in Wyoming, it is as cowboy as it gets, right? At the same time, who lived, there were, multiple indigenous tribes that lived in this area at the time, pre Heart Six Ranch, right? And so trying to facilitate that and bring that aspect into it as well, because that is a big sense of place of where the festival is, right? And so that is, really kind of garnering that that American culture, that American continental culture, not like Americans, the people that existed here throughout, the discourse of many years, in the past. And this is what it is and what it is now, because Wyoming dude ranches still exist and they're very common, and ranches Wyoming does. One of the reasons I love living in Wyoming is it does have an old way of life, an older way of life than if you were to live, live in Phoenix, Arizona or something, right? Or you were to live in New York. Like it has this, this way of life where you're still somewhat in touch with nature and getting out and being in nature. To me, I feel more self-sufficient living here than if I don't necessarily have to completely rely on fully on grocery stores and fully on, this community, they're not community, but this American experiment that could fall apart at any moment, Right.
But you have to when you live in the Rocky Mountains. Because or else you won't be able to survive there.
No, you have to, but at the same time, there's just this more of a man. Either there's just a bigger connection to nature than living in a city. That's all. That and that is coming from a very biased individual who loves living.
But there's also a bigger,
and not necessarily in the city, right?
But there's also a bigger connection to yourself, right?
Yes.
You find out like self-reliance. Right?
Totally. Yeah.
You can get grounded and centered in yourself in a way that you wouldn't be able to do living in a city. Speaking as somebody who has lived in remote and very central places over my lifetime, right? There's a reason I've chosen to live far the fuck up in the mountains and not in the metropolitan area down in the plains, right?
Totally. But Matthias, you and I have spoken at length just about, Fire in the Mountains and the sense of place that we're trying to deliver to people and that experience we're trying to deliver. And so that is still really, really important to us. And we try and, increase that experience every year, every iteration of Fire in the Mountains for people. Right. And for the ticket holders. And I think that's super, super important and totally ties in with this conversation when we're talking about this kind of this either, lack of American culture, or maybe we actually do have American culture and here it is,
I think that's where it is,
Totally.
No, it's a super cool thing that you're doing. Like I just wish more people would get back, not necessarily back to nature, but back to just being comfortable maybe on their own and find themselves and know how to. You don't have to survive off. You don't have to just go out and survive off the land all the time. But I think just knowing how to teaches yourself so many skills. And it's the same kind of thing with like the amount of people that eat meat but would never actually kill an animal. And I think there's such a disconnect there. So there's so many people that would happily eat meat, but they would never be the one that was willing to pull the trigger or do what has to be done. And I think until you actually do that and really understand where things come from, there's a lot you can learn about yourself.
I recently started hunting, and my reason for hunting was because if I was going to continue to eat meat, then I needed to hunt. Is exactly what you're just saying, is that
coming from a past vegetarian too.
Yeah, I was born and raised vegetarian. I didn't eat meat till I was 28 years old, and then
I bet that fucked you up the first time you ate.
It actually didn't. It actually
really
didn't, believe it or not. It didn't.
We used to eat eggs, so that helped.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a friend who's been a vegetarian for years, and he accidentally had some, I think it was bacon or something, and his stomach was all over the place.
Yeah. No, it actually didn't hurt me. But yeah, so I didn't eat meat till I was 28, and then in the last 10 years or so, I selectively ate good meat, but it was no meat that I had actually it didn't come from me. It didn't come from my actions. It didn't come from my hand of actually killing the animal. And I started, recently took up hunting because I reasoned exactly what you're saying, that if I'm going to continue to eat meat, I need to be a part of that actual food chain. I need to be, I need to be intricately involved in that. And so,
and we feel the same way with Fire in the Mountains.
Yeah, totally.
We do a farm to festival barbecue Saturday and Sunday of the weekend where I grow like 90% of the food. I'm a farmer. I do more consultation now, but I'm a farmer. And so this summer, I'll be growing as much food as I can. When I can't, I'll be sourcing locally. And Jonas Lorentzen is our esteemed chef and jack of many trades. Probably
he does everything.
He kind of does. He's gonna do a lot at the festival this year. Most people won't be expecting it. I think it's gonna be pretty special.
Cool.
But we're gonna slaughter a steer because part of the theme, to get back to that with Wings Over Utgard, as many of your listeners might know, Jonas's chefing realm and experiences generally are based on local and forageable food options, where he weaves a story and a narrative into his menus. And so he's going to do the same for us. And one of the parts of that is of his story, and I don't want to divulge it and not do it justice, so I'll let him talk and run the future. But part of it is killing a steer and burying it in ground like the Vikings did over the course of cooking it over the course of days, as opposed to just throwing it on a grill. So we're going to get traditional, and we're going to do it with our bare hands. So we're going to do it right. And we'll have vegetarian options too. Don't worry.
I've had
for sure.
I've had what do you even call it in English? A goat from a hole in the ground before. It's it's great. It's delicious. Like you just put a bunch of coal. There are different ways that you can do it, but the way that we did it back then was to put a bunch of coal inside of it, and then hot rocks around it. And then shifting out the rocks once in a while and that kind of stuff. It was delicious.
I bet it is.
I mean,
just to clarify as well, I don't think it's not feasible for everybody to go out and hunt their own food, because that's asking so much. People live such busy lives, but I think you also have a responsibility to understand where your food comes from, rather than it being in a piece of cellophane in the supermarket. You have to understand how it gets there, and in a lot of cases, in a lot of the supermarket food, it has a horrible consequences for that meat to get there, because it comes from some pretty dark places in the factory food chain. But people don't see that, and a lot of people don't want to see that, because it is upsetting and it's not nice. But you have a responsibility to at least look at that and understand it, and then maybe if it's this whole attitude, I think, that some people have, that they have to eat meat with every meal, and that's it, when you don't have to. Maybe look at where the meat comes from, and if you don't like the factory farming method and the kind of closer to home reared stuff is more expensive, then just maybe eat meat for less meals, but pay more for the good quality meat. and where you know the animals are treated at least with the respect until the end of life.
I mean, we could do multiple podcasts just on this subject
Just
alone.
on this.
Like, it's deep.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, really, it comes down to all of what we've been talking about with that disconnection with ourselves and the world around us. This is all part of it. You have to own your decisions in life, and you can't expect just to get a shot if you've been unhealthy your whole life and you have multiple health issues because of your previous choices, that all of a sudden you're going to get a magic pill or a shot and it's going to save you from some new thing that we're exposed to. It might, but really, I mean, these are decisions, we knew atone for our sins, right? For our, I don't like that word, but for our decisions in life at some point, and there'll be a reckoning. There always is. Nature has a way of owning its laws and holding you accountable to them. You can't skirt nature's laws ever. I don't care who the fuck you are, how much money you make. I don't care if you're Jesus Christ. You can't skirt natural law. It is fundamentally a part of how we live and this earth and our current place in this world, in this lifetime. And you're going to be held accountable to it at some point.
I mean, getting back to the meat thing, I don't think there's any greater disconnect than, what's when people are eating, McDonald's hamburgers or something, and they have no idea where that comes from. And there is no greater disconnect than that, because they're actually literally putting that shit in their body, right? I guess you could say there's a disconnect with the news media we're getting and this and that. Well, what Matthias was talking about, all the different sources of media that he watches. I guess we're literally ingesting that as well. With the meat thing, and it's not only meat though. The vegetarian that eats soy, GMO soy from Brazil, that's a huge disconnect.
There's actually more death in arable agriculture, tilling up the land, killing the little rabbits and the nematodes, arthropods, all that stuff in the soil, and like the little critters, than there is killing one big animal like an elk that you're going to eat over the course of an entire year. There's way more death tilling up the earth to get your seitan or wheat or soy. Right. And I'm not saying there's one right way or the other. I'm just saying we all need to be more aware. Right.
That's the beautiful point right there. And I think the thing we come back to so often on the podcast is that it's all complicated, and none of us are going to sit here and say everybody go and hunt, and I was going to sit here and say everybody go and be vegetarian or vegan or because everybody's different and you're going to do your own thing. It's just being conscious about your actions and at least taking the time to understand where it comes from, and then hopefully being able to make better ones, because it just feels like so many people have lost that accountability for their actions, because especially with going back to the social media thing, people can say fuck you to someone and they can say the most horrible things to somebody on a screen, and there's no comeuppance for that. Someone's not going to be able to hit you or grab you or do anything about it. So this whole kind of consequences is just lost on a lot of people when if you smoke 40-60 cigarettes a day and then you get lung cancer from it, you can't then wonder why you got lung cancer. It's the same with if you eat McDonald's every day and then you get type 2 diabetes, you can't wonder why. But then there are some people that kind of go, oh, I wonder why that happened. Like, well, why the fuck do you think?
Right. Or that guy that, got really sick from COVID and realized that he, eats McDonald's every day, and he could have probably not gotten as sick from COVID if he would just had a little bit of a healthier lifestyle to begin with,
But that's the thing. I mean, that what comes with that whole package, when people have chosen some kind of lifestyle or really set on an idea about what is the best way to live or something like that, they attach moral values to it, and then they say that the people who do the opposite or whatever they cast as the opposite are, amoral, right? So the best example is, of course, when somebody goes vegan and then, tells everybody else who's not vegan that they are somehow morally corrupt because they do not have the same lifestyle. And in the same way, right, you have people who demonize people who eat McDonald's hamburgers. And
For sure, man. That's a really good point. I love that.
And I mean, it is definitely not a good idea to eat a McDonald's hamburger, if you ask me, but I'm not going to tell people that they are bad human beings for doing so.
I eat a McDonald's hamburger every now and then. I'm not going to say I don't.
You're not a bad person. But my point is this tendency to attach moral values and these ideas of morality to it, right? That's where people then get the arrogance from, to demonize us, right? And that's really problematic, right? Like we need to be just a bit more like empathetic out there in the world.
Yeah, and that's
it's a great
circle
point.
back to American culture. That used to be a huge part of our identity. This idea. I mean, freedom is still, I guess that's our culture, right? Like if you had to throw one word out there, it's like, oh, American freedom,
Yeah.
But like that's the way. But it was such a respected thing back in the day. You didn't talk politics. You didn't talk about your personal day-to-day choices unless maybe someone asked you for your opinion because they wanted it, but you just didn't cross that line. There was a level of such mutual respect there that is disintegrated. And
it doesn't have to be the be all and end all either. It's it used to be that you could your friend could vote Republican and you could vote whoever else, and then you go, yeah, but we're still going to go to the pub and have a beer. It doesn't have to be my team, your team. And if you don't agree with everything I agree with, then when we can't sit in the same room anymore. And it's just ridiculous that that's how it's become.
Yeah. Especially with COVID, right? Like I have a good friend, I'm not vaccinated. And he basically told me straight up, he's coming back to Jackson for the winter. And we're talking about going skiing together and being outside and stuff. And I was like, yeah, I'd be psyched to hang out with you again, man. It's been a while. We'll have to reinstitute our dinners. We used to do dinners a lot. He's like one of my oldest friends from Jackson. And he was like, yeah, we'll have to see about that. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, oh, you're not vaccinated. I'm like, so what? He's like, no, I don't know if I'm comfortable having you in my house. What the fuck? Like, really? Like, do I need to take a COVID test before I come over? Because I will. I'll pay $30, bro. It's fine. Doesn't mean I'm any more contagious than you.
Did you actually bring that up to him, Alex? Did they be like,
I sure did.
Before? And what did he say?
He's hemming and hawing. He doesn't feel, he's so, and you know who I'm talking about. He is so ingrained in his fear modality. This is the same guy that when COVID happened, he brought home 2 days later after we had lockdowns, he brought home, or maybe the same day, he brought home $500 worth of snacks and like two huge rolls of toilet paper. And I'm like,
it's his fault we ran out of toilet paper.
He's the one.
He's the one.
That's him.
That's why I was going out. I had to go outside and wipe my ass with snow that winter because of him.
Yeah, but he likes the bidet anyway, Crusher.
Bet he was refreshing. Hey, I bet snow was refreshing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, no, I think Alex, that's such a good point. And I mean, conversely, you've been to my house without being vaccinated, and I'm totally fine with that because it's your personal choice. And I mean, I'm vaccinated, and I don't think that it's going to be a bigger problem for me that you're not vaccinated. I'm not sure I understand the logic fully behind these fears of the unvaccinated. I mean, there's a problem, on a greater scale of those who are unvaccinated and then end up in the hospital. That creates a backlog issue there. But it's, aside from that, I mean, it's
we've discussed this with our festival about how vaccinated people and vaccine checks and COVID tests and this and that. But like one of the things that Alex and I have discussed in a pretty at length is that really the big thing is hey man, if you got tested from that you're negative, your test shows this, then that's as far as going and hanging out with your friend in his house for dinner, or this or that, that's more important these days than being vaccinated, right? I likely have COVID right now as we speak. I'm home from work, right? I had 35 employees out from work last week with COVID, right? So probably it was due to COVID, right? But I'm vaccinated, so it's obviously getting spread amongst us.
I think,
and
I mean,
so
I had it
like
too,
the negative COVID test, the way that it kind of gets spread amongst vaccinated people is more of a dictator as far as like whether or not you're safe to hang out with other people than whether or not you're vaccinated.
I think to go back to what you said, Mateus, though, about unvaccinated people in the hospital, I think I don't like that argument personally, because I've seen people kind of been like, oh, unvaccinated people in the hospital, they shouldn't get treated, or they shouldn't get this. People, I've seen people.
Bullshit.
I'm not saying you're saying that, but I've seen people kind of have that argument. But then you have to. I hate this idea of people not having like a personal choice, and you have people who are massively obese because of their choice to eat. People who smoke and they have to go into hospital for their choice to smoke. Alcoholics who need their stomach pumping on a weekend, or even just people are partying who get the stomach pumping on a weekend because of their choice to drink. And nobody ever says, okay, don't give them healthcare. But then because of somebody's choice not to get a vaccine, I keep my own personal opinions on the vaccine and whether I'm vaccinated or not. I keep them to me because it's nobody's business but mine what I do. So I try to stay quite objective with it. And I just think it's this insane argument that people say, oh, well, if you're unvaccinated, it's your fault that like the healthcare services are struggling maybe. But you have all these other people that make personal choices and take choices in their lives, but nobody ever questions that.
Well, so I mean, from my perspective, the empathy that I have for somebody who ate way too many hamburgers and got really obese and had a heart attack is the same as the one that I have for people who are unvaccinated and end up in the hospital. They all deserve the same care and treatment in the hospitals. What we have is a problem, a logistical problem, right? There's only so many beds available at the ICU units and so on. So that's a problem, right? This is something that China fixed by building a new hospital in 14 days. So I'm just saying, like, the Chinese did that. I don't know what we're doing over here, but definitely not that. So that's something to take into consideration, like people pulling together and not running around like headless chickens, like we seem to be doing here in the West. They can actually get shit done. Not a proponent of communism whatsoever, but I'm just saying they got shit done over there. So that's another way to make something happen and to handle a problem. Make sure to build hospitals with enough ICU beds.
Put your money where your mouth is, right? Like America just keeps talking about all this stuff and nothing gets done ever, and that's why it is all smoke and mirrors. Like that's all this is. Whether it's about COVID or politics or economy, whatever, it's all smoke and mirrors to keep us as blinded from the actual reality of what we should be paying attention to, which is taking our own autonomy into consideration, our own authenticity and our lives, and doing something about it to live the best version of our life that we can. And when you do that, you don't fear a virus. You may get it, but fuck it, you'll be fine.
Yeah,
most likely.
I mean,
because
a couple of things,
game, right?
A couple of things that we need to understand about the situation here, right, is that in the US it's different from in the UK. In the UK, you have a public health system. In the US, we don't. So what does that mean? Well, it means that when I go to the hospital, I'm paying for that shit in one way or another. Actually, in three ways. I pay through my insurance, I pay through my copay, and I also pay through taxes. Yay. In the UK, you only pay over the taxes, right? And
I still find that so insane. That's to me, that's just such a weird way of doing healthcare, especially kind of
it's
in what is considered probably one of the best countries in the world, without a doubt. It's up there, and the fact that the healthcare is such an issue.
It's a way to gouge your pockets, dude. That's all it's about, right? So that's the real problem here. But
we're also good at overcomplicating everything too.
Exactly.
So,
but the thing is
there's
that
one
since
thing in American culture, we just overcomplicate everything. So go on, Matthias.
The thing is that, you know, at the bottom line stands this one particular thing that is, since I'm paying for that shit, I can choose to live however the fuck I want because it's my money going into that stuff, right? That's the situation. Whereas in the UK or in other countries where you have universalized healthcare, you could also make the argument that you have a collective responsibility to maybe not overdo it with the hamburgers or the beers or all that stuff, because ultimately you will be driving up the costs of your healthcare system, right? Now the logistical, you know, shit show that the healthcare system is in the US, trying to manage having a pandemic like this and other public health crises, like, you know, people ODing on various kinds of what is it, morphine derived opiates, yes, right. All of this stuff, of course, should tell you one simple fucking fact, and that is that the US needs a universalized healthcare system, because healthcare in a modern world is a communal business. It's something that we all need to get in on and work on together.
And I mean, there's no surprise, right, that Americans pay the most as a country for healthcare, and we are dead last in the industrialized world, you know, for healthcare. Shocker.
No, so I mean, that's just some I don't know, some wise words for public management.
This episode's taking a turn.
Well, I was about to reel it in and just remind everybody, as a public service health announcement, get your asses to Wyoming this summer, breathe some fresh air, hang out with us in the wilderness of Wyoming with the most killer backdrop you'll ever see at a festival, the Grand Tetons right behind the stage. You can listen to Matthias give a talk on Viking culture and whether they had tattoos or not. I don't know if you're still planning on doing that. We need to talk about it, I guess, but good. And eat some delicious food that I ate, that Jonas cooks, and listen to awesome music and go play in the mountains.
And just connect with people.
I don't think COVID can follow you there.
And connect with people. Exactly.
And connect with people. Exactly. Yeah. And the land, both, all the above. It's just, that's what we need most right now.
Put your phones down.
Dude, you don't even have cell service there. It's perfect.
That's the other thing. Is just step away and put the phones down.
Fire in the Mountains is open to kids, so 12 and under is free. I just saw that come up on the feed, and I think that I saw something about someone didn't drive. We do have shuttle service from the airport to and from the airport. So
we got you all covered. Don't worry.
That's if you go onto the ticketing portal page, there's a way, like with your tickets, you can, when you purchase your tickets, you can also, there's options if you want a shuttle from the airport, you can buy that with the tickets. You can do your camping pass and all that. It's pretty self-explanatory.
And offset your carbon footprint.
You can offset your carbon footprint as well, which is great. If anyone has any kind of more specific questions that you need some help with, you can always email info@fitmfest.com.
Yep. And if you have a question about Grandpa Ralph's Glogg too, a recipe, I can send it to you through there too.
Yeah.
You stop giving that away for free.
Yeah, true. Okay, we'll talk after the show, Daniel.
But we encourage any and all questions. We really pride ourselves on really trying to be as responsive as possible to people who have questions about it, because we do know that one of the things, one of the hurdles that we do have with having a festival is that this is a music festival really kind of out there in the middle of nowhere, and it can be hard for people to get to, or maybe they have they're a little uncomfortable about going there. We're talking about bears and like they're scared, like who the hell knows, right? Like it's a totally unique, for a lot of people, a totally unique and different experience. So there's ultimately going to be questions and concerns. And so hit us up with any of those questions and concerns so that we can guide you in whether or not coming to Fire in the Mountains is something that you really want to do, and however we can get you there, we'll try and give you as much, empower you with as much information as possible to make the right decision. And hopefully it is coming and seeing the festival. So
if you are financially really strapped right now, we just did a scholarship program for some 25 recipients who have been hit hard because of COVID or just challenging times in general the last 2 years. And it was awesome. We were overwhelmed with a response. I mean, that isn't awesome in a way because a lot of people are hurting. So the point I'm getting at is if you do really want to come and you are financially just in dire straits, don't hesitate to reach out to us too and explain your circumstances. And, we're looking to expand upon that scholarship and allow others to come in too. So, contact us and we'll be in touch about that.
You can expect an email from me later.
Well, aren't you gonna come and sell your stuff, man?
No, we should talk about it for sure. I would love to. No, Jeremy, just to go back, I think you said something really interesting there. The people worry about coming, because maybe they're not from that world, I guess. But it's important to go and experience new things and get out there, because if you only live in a major city and kind of do all your work online and on computers, you'll never really understand the other side. Just as if you only live in the country, you'll never understand the other side. So it's important to try and experience these things where possible, and you have this beautiful opportunity in a controlled kind of environment of the festival to experience all these different things and this whole different world. And you may, like you say, hopefully leave there with a different perspective and different understanding of how people think and why people think different things based on where they live.
It is a
right. I mean, it's super. I mean, I get it for someone who maybe hasn't ever camped, in their life, and you got to kind of camp at this festival, right? That's hard to do, but you definitely hit it nail on the head, where at least you get to do it in this controlled environment with other people, other people that you can rely on each other and get through the weekend. I promise you get through the weekend, you'll have a blast. But but that's the way I look. I mean, that's more and more reason to come, because if you've never camped before, then this is like the festival you should come to. It's not for the camping people, it's for the people that have never camped. Like this is it. Like come, camping's the best. It's the best thing. It's so awesome. Waking up on the ground.
I'd say that you guys do a really good job organizing the camping and making sure that things are, like, for instance, bear safe, and everything is like lined out and nobody has any issues setting up a tent and all that stuff. It's really well done and streamlined. So
we also do have a way you can also rent camping gear directly from the ticketing portal page as well, because we realize that not everyone has camping gear. So we've partnered with a local company that has rents out camping gear, and so
it's pretty affordable.
When you come and check in at the festival itself, it's there waiting for you. So
we got you all covered.
You guys are covered. You have covered everything. There's no excuse not to go. No, let's wrap this one up. It may not be the most Viking episode or the most Nordic mythology episode, but it does all link back. And it's an important message that we talk about. It comes up week in, week out when you talk about topics with the Viking Age, with Nordic mythology. It's just that getting back to nature. It is a time when people lived off the land, and I'm not going to say it was a simpler time, because I would rather live now than then. But it's certainly just having that connection to the earth, which I think we have lost. And like I say, we talk about it time again with the animism episodes and so on. So what you guys are doing, it really is a nice thing. And so many more people need to try and get that connection back. And hopefully we'll come and join your festival.
Yeah. Well, thanks. It was awesome to be a part of this. And we hope that, we hope that Fire in the Mountains is just kind of one small step forward for, a greater kind of industry of music, just bringing people to great areas to see music. And that was one of the in the beginning, we mentioned our vision, and one of our visions is just really bringing music into areas of the world, that landscapes where people get to have this deeper experience and connection to nature, and the music connects with that. So hopefully that keeps happening, and it's not just us that does it.
No, and with that comes an element of a cultural heritage and traditions that you'll be exposed to too, which they're super important. So thanks
Awesome.
guys. This was cool.
This is great.
Yeah, always a pleasure to talk to you guys.
Let people know where they can get tickets, where they can follow the festival, where they can find stuff.
Yep. FITMfest.com is our website.
That's the website. The Instagram is at Fire in the Mountains. It's pretty, once you get to the website, you can definitely, it's pretty easy to check out. We tried to do the best of a job as we could as far as disseminating as much information about the festival and kind of logistics that involve coming to Jackson and what you can do while you're there, where you can stay, like also, almost like a travel agency in a way. And again, like I said, you can always email us, and we try to be as responsive as possible. If there's something that when you kind of skim through the website, you don't get something isn't answered, we'll get right back to you. And then the ticketing portal page explains a lot about kind of what everything is, what you get with everything in different ticketing packages and stuff. So
all the bands have been announced, but we'll be starting to release all the speakers and the workshops in the coming days, really, and it's going to go on for a while because there's a number of them. And the artists too. So and there'll be a list of all the vendors who are going to be there. Check out the website, pay attention to Instagram, ask Matthias because he knows what's going on as well as anybody.
So, and come be a part of the community, because that's the other thing that it's about, is community. So
oh, wonderful. Yeah, perfect. Matthias, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram.
That's it. That's it.
Well, you should also follow the Nordic Mythology podcast on Instagram, of course. And if you're one of them people on Facebook, check in on the Nordic Mythology group, a podcast group on Facebook as well. Don't forget to sign up on our Patreon so that you get direct access to Q&As with me, because I've stopped answering DMs on Instagram where people are asking questions.
If you enjoy this show, leave us a 5-star rating, a positive review wherever you listen. iTunes is always a good one, helps us bump up the ratings. But most importantly, Patreon. So no matter what level you sign up, you're going to get a bonus episode every week. One of the episodes we're going to do, like Matthias said, it's going to be a Q&A every other week. We're going to talk about kind of our lives a little bit more on there. It's going to be less Viking based maybe, but also Matthias is going to answer some questions from patrons on stuff maybe we've missed in episodes or not clarified, or you just have a personal question about the Viking Age Nordic mythology. He's going to be able to answer that there. You can put your questions to before the show and then listen to them back after. And then the other show is going to be a story time with Jonas, the man of all talents, comes on and does the narration for our story time episodes where we look through a saga. He narrates and gives us some nice voices, and it's a really, really good fun. So you're gonna, like I say, if you enjoy the show, you get 50% more if you support the Patreon. So go do that.
65 to 70% more.
Or is it 100% more? That's what I was wondering.
You're wondering about the math of it all? I wouldn't know. I'm a literature major.
Because I was like, if you get an extra episode every week, is that 100% more, or is it 50% more?
100.
It's 100% more.
Yep.
It's even better deal. It's a better deal than I fucking said. You get 100% more.
Yeah.
Grab the 50%. It's 100% better.
No.
But isn't the 100%? Isn't that the total of all the stuff that we do?
No, you get there's 100% of the main episodes, and then you get 100% more of that. You get double the episodes. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
I majored in Nordic mythology. I wouldn't know, man.
Double the episodes, twice the episodes, twice as fun. Yeah, no, some of those extra episodes are fun, and you can listen to them back on Patreon. They're on there permanently, so you can jump back, and if you can't watch it live, you can listen to them at your own leisure if you're American. And perfect. Let's wrap this up. Thank you very much. Like you say, it wasn't on topic the whole way, but
here's the Grandpa Ralph.
Is that all?
It's a Grandpa Ralph.
Oh yeah.
You're on your second one. That's not the first one from before.
No, that's a big.
That's a
He
pint.
says sommelier.
no,
He can drink till the cows come home.
He's got no smell and taste. That's why.
He's really trying to kill that COVID now. Yeah.